Hey, how you doing? This is Jeff with eblinds.org. We're gonna attempt restringing a cordless honeycomb shade from Levolor Kirsch. This is kind of what the motor looks like. On the top, this winds up the cord. It's being held together with two grommets. I took one of the C-clips off that will release the motor from the top rail, but you see that C-clip is still intact there. So what we do is I grab an awl, I just start prying on that thing, and well, you see how fun it is. This is probably going to take a little while. Don't know how much of this is going to end up on the editing room floor. But the first thing I do is try to get that little clip out. The one I did yesterday, I flung it pretty far and couldn't find it. Anyway, that's a C-clip. You just got to work it out. And we're just going to start taking this thing apart. Take the end caps off the top rail, and then we'll remove these cord guides. This one I've already taken the cover off on the top. But if you got a little bit of string in there, that's a good sign. There doesn't have to be any in there at all. So we're going to take the tape guides out. Set those aside. Make sure you have a particular place where you keep all your parts so you can keep them handy in places. There's the end caps for the head rail. We're going to need to take the bottom rail caps off as well. So that's the one side, and we're going to slide this out here. You can see how the tape is just on there. What they do is they just leave a little bit extra on there, and then they just tie a washer on the bottom. That comes a little difficult when you're trying to adjust the length. I did this one this way yesterday, but then I stole the part off of an old Norman honeycomb shades. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a couple of slots in there. It's very easy to adjust the length because you're not tying a knot off on the end. Anyway, we'll set those aside. And I guess what would be a good idea is if we just make sure, I'm just going to put some marks on here. That's the left. And I'm going to mark the motor and the rail, right and right. Just make sure that I'm putting the motor back in the same way once I'm taking it out. So right now I've taken the cord out and the cord guides, and that will allow you to slide the head rail completely off, leaving just some material. And then these two pins dropped out that were being held by these cotter pins. That, locks the motor in place. But now we've just taken this apart, and we have the spring drive motor here. You can see over on this side how the cord had broke, or the lift tape had broke and it snagged it. So there still is tension on there. And what I did is I've had a little more cord that's wound pretty evenly on the one side. Now there's these plastic cord guides. come off. And I thought I was going to be able to somehow use this as a pre-winding tool, but I'm not sure how that's gonna actually work, so I might just do it as if you're coming across one of these with no... See, there's two grooves that the cord winds up on. Well, it obviously it can only wind up on one, but then there's a secondary one down below, so you have your choice of which side you want to put it on. Now this, from where I've marked it, these were wound on the bottom. I guess I'm just holding it upside down. At any rate, I'll show you how to go ahead and pre-wind all these up. First thing we're going to do is cut the cord, cut the tape, and take off all the tension on the spring. So we'll give it a snip. Just make sure your hands aren't anywhere close by when all that's going on. And then we have this mess that we have to fish out of the motor. So a good handy tool is a lacing hook, or you can just take a paper clip and bend it, put a little hook on the end, but that just gives you something to grab hold of. And this is probably the part that takes the longest, is actually getting all the old stuff out. So you can just pull a little bit of the end, and then there you're just dealing with that. So we'll try the other side. Pry that cord guide off. I'm going to set those aside because they have my washers on them. It's very easy to get messy real quick. Just want to make sure you know where everything's at. And then here's the other. I had an idea last night when I was, and I think I'm going to give it a whirl today. First of all, you can see all these gears, or maybe, I don't know if you can or not, but you see all the teeth that are on there. I had the idea of basically pulling the tape out as far as you can get it, and I'm going to take a screw and just kind of hopefully wedge it in there. There. So now that screw is holding the tension on there. I'm just trying it this way this evening to see if I can't take advantage of some pre-winding, because that, I have to be honest with you, that is the biggest pain in the butt. Now you have to be careful because you are, you know, working under tension. And there it goes. What fun. I think we'll try it the normal way, or the way I did it last night, instead of trying to get all fancy. This would probably save a little bit of time, but we'll do it the old-fashioned way. So I just cut that off, and now I just have to fish the rest of this line out of here. Might want to notice my writing is on the top and it's been wound on the bottom, so I want to make sure I'm threading it that way again. And sometimes this last piece of tape is hard to get out of here because you can see these little holes in there, and you see how that flat tape, they just tie a knot off and slide it in that hole, and you know, and then it pinches in there, so that grabs it nice and tight. Sometimes it's hard to get that last little bit out of there, but if you get a knife, you can just pry that last piece out. You pull it out, you see that's where the knot is. Now you're going to have to, you know, do a little bit of math to figure out how much tape you need to put in. I've already calculated on this shade I'm going to need about 100 inches each side for the flat tape. And then we have another good idea is to make sure you see which way it's rolling up. So as my pencil mark right and left there, as I'm looking at the teeth on the open end, because there's an open side and a closed side. So I'm looking at the open side and the tape is coming off the top of the barrel. I just want to make sure I thread it the same exact way so the spring will actually work. Now I've taken everything out and I've pre-measured some of this, and this is probably the longest part, so I'm just going to show you how to get it started and do a few things. I'll cut away from this and then we'll pick it up once I have everything basically all spooled up. So you're having to hand wind around this wheel about 80 to 90 inches of this flat tape. It can take a little while. Sometimes it's a little tough to do, a little tedious, but it's well worth it. Now I've already tied the end on the end of the knot. I'm going to try to have it find that hole, make sure it's on the bottom. I'm going to get it started, and then sometimes it needs a little bit of help to get past that hole so you can actually pinch it in there. Now the main thing is when you're winding this up, you want to keep it, keep the tape, absolutely as flat as possible. You don't want it twisting over, so it's kind of critical. This first step is to keep the tape flat. So I'm just spreading it out. There, my first loop was a success. No twists in the line, which is important. And this again is where this lacing hook comes in handy. I'm just wrapping it around and then holding that with my finger, and then I'm reaching in to try to grab that tape. Can't see if I'm getting it. There it is. Pulling it through. If you just keep holding the tension on the cord or on that tape, that'll make sure you're not, getting it twisted. But that was one. Two. But I think you get the idea, and I'm going to come back when I've finished this, have this all the way wound up.